Today I'm going to be going over a couple of activities that you guys can participate in on your own time with yourselves that should be quite beneficial for you when it comes to giving yourself more awareness of what's going on within your own psyche, let's say, that will help you with clarity and being more clear with yourselves on a daily basis. And this is something that me and my girlfriend had started recently experimenting with to kind of develop our own clarity when it comes to, of course, being aware as well, when it comes to our own personal kind of way of going about things, but also with each other and ourselves. And this is we downloaded an app called Insight Timer. But it's fundamentally what we're doing with it, or what you can also do with it, is a process of meditation. And this process of meditation is mostly based around the principles of being aware of our own selves and not emptying the mind, as meditation often is referred to. When we hear about meditation, we often think about the process of emptying your mind and allowing yourself to let go of all things in relation to the world in some kind of strange alienating sense, which is kind of weird in a way. But the way we've kind of been implementing it is not to let go specifically, but more to be aware of ourselves through meditation by allowing the external reality to influence the internal, in a way. The basic kind of principles around this that you can base this form of meditation on is the process of becoming aware of your kind of physical stresses or your armoring in the body, which is something, if you know of psychoanalysis, that Wilhelm Reich often talked about when it came to understanding your kind of shadow, and elements of integrating your shadow is that there are certain physical armorings that come up, or certain physical restrictions that we give ourselves that become outlets of our shadow within our body, so that we, instead of integrating them, we push them into a different part of ourselves that become repressions through the body. And this is something that this meditation process, especially on its first initial one that you do, will allow you to be very much aware of what is existent in your physical space in your body. But it's also to kind of understand the initial response and feeling that you feel when doing this process as well. Because the structure of it is that you give yourself, let's say for the first time you do it, 10 minutes of, you could say, presence meditation, where you give yourself presence and you don't set an intention with the meditation that you're doing. Instead, you allow the kind of external reality to influence how you understand yourself. And this is kind of interesting because you can see it kind of like this, right? That by doing this, you give yourself magnetism to your internal reality. That the presence that you exist in and that you sit with, it becomes magnetic to the shadow in a way, because by sitting in your own presence, you then start to be present with the things that arise that are kind of repressed or from the underground, you could say. Because you're observing how you feel by being present, and your presence will give you space to feel what is dormant underneath the skin. And this is something that I kind of realized as well when I first did it, was I instantly kind of, even from just doing the first one, even if you don't do meditation often, this is quite a good useful tool to just feel out the initial responses that your mind and body start to perceive from within yourself. Is that, what will you be doing the first time you do the meditation is, you might be fidgeting, you might be moving around a lot,
You might be, you have to ask yourself questions after you do it. What colors did you see or did not see when you had your eyes closed? Were there any tensions in your body? When you were trying to meditate, how long did it take for you to relax inside your body? Did you notice any sounds when you were doing the meditation, or did you focus on certain sounds more so than other certain sounds that are in like the kind of location or not even there potentially? Or were you fidgeting? Anything like this. You need to like write these pointers down so that after you do it, after the first 10 minutes, you can then self-reflect on what kind of processes were going on within your body that kind of disrupted your ability to be present with yourself. And you can use those as key pointers to further dig into yourself to understand what is truly going on there, to see to kind of figure out what restrictions are present there. And of course, I'd say with most millennials and most people who are like Generation X, or even like just in general, especially for me, most of my shadow content is in relation to my body and in relation to the way I feel. So, and this is even present when I'm trying to integrate my shadows, like when I'm trying to voice how I feel, I usually feel bodily restrictions within my throat, or I start to fidget more, or I start to feel, or like they kind of present themselves through the body. And then because my body is not as integrated as my mind is with myself, because I'm more of a mental, cerebral thinker than an emotional feeler through my body. So, for example, a lot of the things when I did this for the first time, there was more bodily, you could say, coping restrictions or repressions that would more come up for me than anything else, such as physical tensions, fidgeting, moving around, finding outlets within the mind to go to rather than being present, at least for the first 5 minutes until you do settle in and settle down into the process of the meditation itself. So when you do this, you can actually, by giving yourself sense-based questions after the meditation, you can actually start to see certain things and to feel out certain aspects of yourself that give you insight through the time that you've given in your day to do this short meditation process. Even if you have a partner to do this with, this would be even better, because you can then give your partner the ability, you could say, to ask the questions to you. And this is probably even better over time when you consistently do this, because if you're in an attempt to create a healthy, good, fulfilling relationship, then even in that sense, you are going to develop a closer, intimate relationship with that individual if you do this process, because you're creating and you're harnessing and you're developing the syzygy, which Jung termed in relation to the anima and the animus, and the completing of those two psychic entities coming together to create, let's say, the self, or to create a holistic, healthy enmeshment in a way. Because you even have this with, let's say, two monadic wholes, which you could say would be like two entities coming together to create a place of, you could say, wholeness through their interaction. And you could say that can even be attempted if you have a partner to do this with, because the partner can ask you the questions in which you then give the answers to. And if you're doing it correctly, you can open up something much more intimate with that individual when you do this with honesty with yourself and your partner. And through doing this, you give yourself clarity to what should I kind of focus more on when it comes to throughout the day, because you can do this at the start of the day, you can do this at the end of the day. But if you do this at the start of the day, you give yourself clarity of what you should do maybe for the rest of the day or the rest of the week, or what you should maybe subconsciously think about more when you continue on with the interactions that you do in the rest of the day with the world around you. When you first do this, you don't really want to set you could say like a kind of cerebral mental intention. You kind of want to, even though when you say like, oh, it's a process, it's a form of meditation, therefore you might think, oh, that I need to set an intention within the process before I do it. You don't really want to set an intention because when performing this task, because an intention kind of blocks other realities that are existent in the world that you exist in as well. It's kind of like tunnel vision, and we're always in tunnel vision. So you don't really want to set another intention with this process. You simply want to feel out what comes up from the underground when doing this, and that itself will then display the intention of where you should go with it at the end of the process. We're always under the influence of intention. We're always doing things. This is even the case. We're either doing things consciously or unconsciously, but there's always an intention in those things. That's why we have tunnel vision. That's why we have ourselves and people constantly pointing our kind of phallic energy towards a specific destination, whether it be work, whether it be in a career, whether it will be with simply kind of living in a kind of subconscious way of life, going about the kind of typical obligations that we constantly exist in relation to the status quo. Well, we're constantly in a form of tunnel vision, and we need to give ourselves presence so that we take ourselves out of that consistent tunnel vision mindset, which isn't always beneficial. So when you do first do this for the first time, don't set a specific intention when you do it. Just allow the intention to arise after the meditation is finished, because you're then giving yourself the body to feel out the intention instead of thinking what the intention should be first. And this is another aspect that our society is lacking in, is that the thinking can often be the problem, when truly we should allow our body to feel out the solution of the situation before thinking in a cerebral way what we should do first, because thinking can be and is often a projection onto our reality, which isn't always conscious of the other things within us that causes us to not feel what we should feel. So don't set a prior intention when doing this process. And if you have a partner to do it with, then that's even better, because it will allow the intimacy of that relationship to even flourish more if you're honest with yourself and you give yourself clarity. The second part of what I'd also be interested to see you guys participate in as well is going back to what I was talking about last week with the process of developing habits. Because of what I've kind of created is from influence of that Atomic Habits book, which I think is really great. I think it's kind of like the one book that gives you a solid answer to always give you a structure to create habits that will always, if you have the motivation, if you have the willpower, will always give you success. I've kind of created a habit planner sheet that you can implement into whatever you want to do, so that you yourself can create new plans and create new habits for yourself that will be successful and not constantly cause you to start yourself back on that starting line, that will cause you to restart your attempt of creating better habits for yourself. And I'll share this PDF file in the chat, in the main room chat, so you can download it or you can print it out and you can use it and you can put it on your wall and you can plan out each section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through this, and then hopefully you guys can then implement it into whatever habits that you want to create for yourself. And then you can get back to me to see, and we can talk further on whether it's working for you or whether it isn't working for you. And we can see where we can go from there. So this is kind of how it's structured out. You've got kind of 4 sections. And those 4 sections are the same thing as I talked about in the previous video when it comes to the 4 forms of behavior change. And obviously it follows as: make the habit obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And in relation to that, you have cues, cravings, response, and reward. And there are certain processes that you can participate in with yourself that will allow you to make these things more obvious, more attractive, more easy, and satisfying. And you can put these, and you can, after I described these initial kind of systems that you can follow through on, you can then write out how you would implement that into creating the new habit that you want to create. So for example, if you want to make it obvious, you have to have something which you would call an implementation strategy. And this implementation strategy is simply the statement of willpower from within yourself that you will do this at this certain time. It's simple as that. You're simply making a power statement within yourself that says what you will do and what time you will do it at. And that is kind of the initial statement of willpower that will then allow you to proceed with the other things in which you then make a habit for yourself. Because after that, you then get craving. And that is, how do you make it attractive? Because a lot of time when we're trying to produce habits, they're not always attractive. They're not things that we initially want to do. For example, I'm kind of stubborn when it comes to putting things in order with regards to tidying up and doing certain things that won't aid to my personal process of succeeding with certain things that I want to do for myself. So I usually push those other things behind and then say to myself, well, I don't need to do that. I can just leave that. It's not necessary. When really these things are necessary, because these things stack up over time and they affect our efficiency with all these other things that we're trying to do in our daily lifestyles. So making it attractive is kind of a process of brain reprogramming. You may be NLP or something, but brain reprogramming in the sense that we reaffirm the outcome rather than the action itself. So the outcome is that so depending on the habit that you want to create, right? Give a basic example of someone who is overweight, wants to start losing weight, but finds it difficult to get the motivation to get up and go to the gym or anything like that, is that you need to reprogram your brain to the outcome of the action and not the action itself. Because you say, well, I don't really want to go and do this thing because the thing itself is tedious at the moment and not something that I want to do, but the outcome is much more better if you do it. So therefore you have to affirm yourself the outcome of what that thing will give you in achievement rather than the action itself. The action could be, I will spend 10 minutes or 30 minutes doing cardio exercises. That to you personally might sound absolutely terrible and boring and something that you completely don't want to do. So don't focus on that. Focus instead on, I will lose, from doing my actions, from these actions, I will feel healthier and start to decrease my obesity level or something like this. And I will start to feel more happier and I will start to feel more healthier. And this is obviously something that you'd much rather want. So therefore reprogram your brain to the outcome of doing that specific action, rather it being the other way around. And that itself will make it more attractive to you. And therefore, by making it more attractive, you will further be able to proceed into doing that habit. The next element of it is response, which is, making it easy. And there are kind of like 3 processes you can do for this as well. So one way of making it easy, and because a lot of the time, the reason why we don't succeed in our habits is because we don't make it easy for ourselves. And for when we don't make it easy for ourselves, and we make it hard for ourselves, we then lose track of continuing that process. So to make it easy, you want to implement the 2-minute rule to begin with, which is in itself making the start of the habit easier for you. Instead of, because a lot of the time we say, right, I'm going to start doing this new thing, I'm going to do all of these things and activities for this certain long length of time every day, or every once in a week, or once every 7 days, and stack all of these responsibilities on top of myself before I can even figure out what I can be responsible for. So you want to kind of put the 2-minute rule in place, is that I will start off every day, instead of doing all of this hard work towards producing this habit within myself, is to instead do it for 2 minutes. Because then you're not going to give yourself the burden of unknown responsibility yet. And you're going to make it more easier for yourself, and therefore after that easy first step is implemented, you can then increase it over time so that you don't burn out, and then you don't cut yourself off from doing that, from creating a routine of that habit. Because it's the routine that then gets us to know if that habit has succeeded in being implemented into ourselves. Because it's developing the routine that's most difficult. And of course we often don't get into that stage because we focus on trying to do too much in too short of a time frame. And then again, to make it even more easy, is to remove any friction, the law of friction, get rid of anything that's in the way of doing that thing, whether it would be unattractive kind of habits that you've got for yourself, bad habits. Remove those things by hiding them from yourself, to get them out of your environment, but also to make things more fluid in terms of achieving that habit itself, by not making the process of doing it difficult, or that there would be many things in the way of achieving it. For example, like if you're going to work and you can't find time because work is taking so much, is occupying so much of your time, then try and structure this habit around the free time you have around work, instead of thinking of it in like as a last resort or the last thing in the day, which you then don't have time to go over with. But they're also like removing any friction with regards to priming your environment again, also when it comes to putting certain things in your environment that will emphasize the actionable process of doing that thing as well. Even though that your mind is a temple, you are housing your body in an environment. So your environment is as much of a temple as anything else is. So make sure that your environment is also primed and stimulated in the right way, so that your habit is made more easily rememberable to do. And then the next one would be make it satisfying. Therefore, in terms of rewards, you want to maybe potentially start doing things that will give you kind of dopamine hits in relation to that habit. So having like a habit tracker, and like the fulfillment of, because this isn't always relevant to everybody, but sometimes people can get fulfillment from simply finishing something that they say they're going to do and ticking it off the list. And this will give like fulfillment, because it will remind yourself of, that you're a responsible individual that actually wants to create change and positive change with the implementation of the good habits that you want to put into your life. So having like a habit tracker is also useful for that, but also like a proof of progress kind of system as well, which with like your partner is also quite useful, or anybody, like could be with a friend, could be with a partner. Because what you could then do, because you're a friend or you're a partner with this individual, because they're an intimate person in your life, obviously you want to make your relationships flourish in the best way possible. So therefore, sharing your progress with that individual is always going to make you happier, and it's going to reinforce satisfaction with yourself, and also that other individual is going to see that you're doing well also from developing this habit. Therefore, they're going to also reinforce satisfaction by congratulating you on certain things that you've achieved. So that also will help with the satisfaction, or making the habit more satisfying for yourself, is that if you have like an accountability partner where you can share these certain things with them, that will make it more fulfilling for you as well. So under each one of those sections, you've got the 4 kind of tables. And what you want to kind of do is kind of fill out each one in relation to either one of those pointers that I've put underneath each law of behavior change. And by doing that, you can then set out a 4 kind of like because you've got 4 tables there, and each one will cover certain things that you can do in your own life right now that will reinforce the ability for this habit that you want to achieve to be more actionable, but also to be more successful over time. Because you're literally proofing each element of your life when you look at the 4 laws of behavior change, and then the methods that relate to those laws of behavior change that can then increase the ability for these habits to be achieved, rather than to be pushed to the sidelines where they won't be achieved as well as they could from using the influence of understanding these fundamental laws within our own psyche, but also certain techniques that we can use within those laws to help us develop the success of certain habits that we want to put into our own lives. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to reaffirm like your opinions about it. Give me critiques of what you think about this video, and then if you want to get back to me on you implementing these kind of strategies into your kind of personal self-awareness process every day or every week, try out this kind of like habit planner, see if it works for you, and get back to me on after you using it or you kind of initially giving it a go, and I can like overlook what you've written and see if it is effective for you, and then give me like feedback over like a week from doing that, so I can get like even a better understanding of how effective it has been or if it hasn't been for you. So then I can go into it more and see if there are any problems with it, or to see what benefits have been gained from it. And also check out the original thing that I said at the start as well, which you could kind of say is part 1 of this video, with the insight timer and the processes of meditation, to allow yourself not to empty your mind, but more to give yourself awareness in the present moment, so that your shadow is magnetized towards you by understanding the external environment and how it implicitly affects the way you feel. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you feel like it resonated with you on a level of magnitude, and you feel like procrastination is also something that you are dealing with, and you're always following and falling down the convenient path that is always easier and never actually good for you,
and you want to break the cycles of procrastination that you're constantly in, and you want to stop giving yourself away to these easy, simple pleasures that don't fulfill you, and you want to work on developing your own decentralized freedom when it comes to building good habits for yourself, then sign up for a free consultation call down below with me, and we can talk about the methods and the techniques that you will need to know so that you can develop those aspects of yourself to reach a greater, higher potential. So with that said, make sure to click on the link in the description below, and I look forward to talking to you very soon.